Good evening, dear participants, and our today's eminent resource person, Dr. Sachin Gupta, sir, Assistant Professor Mohanlal Sukhadia, University, Udaipur, Rajasthan. My name is Chandan Veer, and I'm a research scholar, Department of Management Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi Central University. I welcome you all on behalf of Department of Management Sciences in our capacity building program on research and publication ethics. And our today's session is on the topic scientific misconduct, falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. And it will be delivered by our eminent speaker, Dr. Sachin Gupta, sir, Mohanlal Sukhadia, University, Udaipur. But before that, I would like to take this opportunity to say a few lines about Sir as a brief introduction. Sir, you have a rich experience in the field of research and training and teaching. Currently, you are serving in the Department of Business Administration as an assistant professor, Mohanlal Sukhadia University. Sir, you are PhD, MPhil, MBA, MCOM, and UGC NET qualified. You have also earned Executive Development Program in Advanced Financial Management from XLRI Jamshedpur. Sir, you have also done postgraduate certificate program in finance, IIM Indore. You have also completed diploma in IFRS from University of Delhi. Apart from the academic accolades, you are also decorating the administrative levels of your prestigious university. Sir, you are assistant coordinator of finishing school and placement cell as well as entrepreneurship development cell. Sir, you have attended several seminars, conferences, and workshops. You have several publications in journals of national and international repute. Sir, your area of interest is business, finance, and accounting, as well as investment and portfolio management. Thank you, sir. I welcome you once again and thank you for sparing your valuable time and gracing this session. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Now, with these words, I would like to hand over the session to our honorable speakers, sir. Over to you. Sir, if you can
Thank you
hear
so
me.
much, sir, for the nice introduction of mine. So, first of all, my heartiest thanks to our very respected Dean, sir, Mahatma Gandhi Department of Management Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Bihar, Professor Pavnesh, sir, for inviting me in 2 week capacity building program, which is on the very important topic, research and publication ethics, which is being conducted by Department of Management Sciences from 15 to 28 November 2021. So my take on the topic would be scientific misconducts, falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. So it is, I think, very, very important topic, and I am very much excited to deliberate on this topic. And I intentionally took this topic because this is a favorite topic of mine if we talk about research ethics. So before proceeding to the main topic, I would like to know from the side of participants, what is the basic distinction between falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism? Any one of you? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yes.
I'll request the participants
Yes, sir.
if any of them can unmute themselves.
Any one of you, if you could impart your learnings about what is meant by falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. So I just want to know how much knowledge do you possess about research ethics? Yes. Any one of you?
Anand Sharma has raised his hand. Anandji, if you can unmute.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Anant Kumar Sharma.
Mhm.
I am research scholar in Management Science Department.
Mhm.
I think falsification is also include changing omitting data result in such a way that the research is not accurately represented.
Mhm. Okay, this is known as falsification.
Yes, sir.
Falsification means if you are quoting wrong data in your research, it means falsification. Is it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And what is meant by fabrication?
Fabrication is make up research data and research and recording or reporting them.
Yes. Very good. Means if you make up the data, if you fabricate the data, if you manipulate the data in another way. So it is
Yes.
known as fabrication. And what is meant by plagiarism? If you quote someone's data as it is known as plagiarism. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So there is a Albert Einstein quote, the right to search for truth implies also a duty. One must not conceal any part of what one has recognized to be true. देखो, what is the basic purpose of this slide? This slide shows that research integrity is vital. Why research integrity is vital? We talk about research ethics, we talk about research aspects which should be very integrated. So why it should be vital? Because it creates trust, and trust is at the heart of the every research process. So if we talk about research integrity, so this slide shows that researchers must be able to trust each other's work. Because if their work will be trustable, so they must also be trusted by the society. Reason being, they provide scientific expertise that may impact people's lives. So this is all about this slide meaning. So there is a case study before moving to the main topic. It is a case study of chain restaurant study. Just read this slide carefully. One day, I received a phone call from research analyst who introduced himself as one of our alumni. He was working for a restaurant chain in town and wanted help analyzing the data he had collected while conducting a market research study. When he met, he presented with a copy of the questionnaire and asked how he should analyze the data. So being a researcher, my first question to him was, what is the problem being addressed? And when you will go through this case study, you will be able to find the person who was analyzing the data was not at all aware about the research problem. So when he looked perplexed, I explained that data analysis is not an independent exercise. Rather, the goal of data analysis is to provide information related to the problem components. I was surprised to learn that he did not have a clear understanding of the research problem. So here I have taken example of marketing research problem. It could be any one of the aspect of any business problem. And that a written definition did not exist. So before going any further, I had to define the marketing research problem. Once that was done, I found that much of the data collected was not relevant to the problem. In this sense, the whole study was a wastage of resources. A new study had to be designed and implemented to address the problem defined. Now, what was the problem over here as per this case study? As per this case study, the basic problem of research was not at all defined. So, if we do any type of research study, first we have to know what is the exact problem we are facing. See, we know that research integrity means conducting a research in such a way that allows others to have confidence and trust in the methods and findings of the research. But if you people are not aware of what is the exact research problem, then how will you go through that what is the basic research integrity of your research? So, key elements of research integrity include honesty. Honesty means you must know each and every aspect of your research. Rigorness, transparency, and open communication. If someone is asking anything about your research, you must be quite aware that if data is to be analyzed, so I must know, being a researcher, I must know that it is a research problem. It is a research topic. So, in this sense, as per this chain restaurant case study, a person is being intellectually honest when he or she knowing the truth and states that, yes, this topic is pertaining to this problem. Whenever any communication intending to inform or persuade, he or she must be quite aware that this is my basic research problem. So this is known as intellectual honesty. है ना? We talk about research integrity, we talk about research ethics, we talk about scientific misconduct. But if you people are not aware about the main research problem, how will you define that, yes, I am very much aware on the path of research honesty? So intellectual honesty can also be defined by various synonyms. For example, I can say that, yes, I'll not be indulge myself into any research misconduct. है ना? I will be intellectual honest if I am on the path on preciseness, punctualness, meticulousness, and consciousness. So intellectual honesty is the honesty in the acquisition, in the analysis, and in the transmission of ideas. This is intellectual honesty. Research misconduct is the second step. First, you will have to be on the path of research integrity. And a person is being intellectual honest when he or she knows the truth, states the truth. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Say yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So this was the basic purpose of this chain restaurant study. In this case study, as per this case study, the person was not at all aware about the marketing research problem. And this is one of the very biggest step of research misconduct. If you people are not aware on what topic you are pursuing your research, it means you are not a very good researcher. So this is known as scientific attitude. This is known as scientific attitude of intellectual honesty. Next slide. So this is the bookish definition of intellectual honesty. I am reading this slide. We have a moral duty to be honest, and this duty is especially important when we share ideas that can inform or persuade others. So intellectual honesty combines good faith with a primary motivation towards seeking true beliefs. So next slide is also there. Just reading once again. Yes. So intellectual honesty is an applied method of problem solving characterized by an unbiased, honest attitude, which can be demonstrated in a number of different ways, including number one, ensuring support for chosen ideologies does not interfere with the pursuit of truth. Relevant facts and information are not purposefully omitted, even when such things may contradict one's hypothesis. Facts are presented in an unbiased manner and not twisted to give misleading impressions or to support one view over other. References or earlier work are acknowledged where possible, and plagiarism is avoided. So a person is being intellectual honest when he or she, knowing the truth, states the truth. So this is the basic conclusion. This is the basic conclusion, means intellectual honesty. What is the basic meaning of this? Because this is the furthermost aspect of research ethics. So if you are into the research area and you are a researcher, so there is an applied method of problem solving, which can be characterized by various aspects such as you should be unbiased, you should have honest attitude, that can be demonstrated in a number of different ways, including but not limited. So what is your personal belief? That is the pursuit of truth. So we have to follow this basic aspect of intellectual honesty, being a very good researcher, that a person is being intellectual honest when he or she knowing the truth and states the truth. The second very important in research aspect comes ethics. See, what is the basic means of research ethics? We all know that if we talk about simple ethics, we all know ethics means what? Ethics means what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, है ना? what is violation, what is irresponsible behavior. So as per this slide, we can conclude that yes, ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, relating to morals, treating of moral questions, that morally correct, honorable, principle of moral, science of moral, moral principle, rules of conduct, and whole field of moral science. So ethics means what? It is a distinction between right or wrong or good and evil in relation to action, violation, and characters of responsible being. So if we talk about research ethics, why it is important in research area? See, ethics, we know that ethics are very, very important for a number of reasons. Because ethics are the one that promote the aim of research. For example, suppose I have to expand my knowledge in research. So research ethics will be the one who will be responsible for this. So ethics are the supportive areas. They support the values required for collaborative work. See, ethics are the, in nutshell, I can say that ethics are the ways that promote mutual respect, that promote fairness, है ना? Or that promotes collaboration between researchers and groups. If you will not be ethical person in research, then whole research would be wastage. So, if we talk about ethical problems, so first you have to know what is meant by ethical norms. See, before moving to this ethical problem in social science research, because being a faculty of management, being a faculty of commerce and management, first of all, if we are a very good researcher, our first and foremost duty is to know what is meant by ethical norms. So ethical norms are the pathways that serves the aim or goals of research and can be applied to people who conduct scientific research or other scholarly or creative activities. For example, if someone is into the prohibition against fabrication or falsifying or misrepresenting research data, and by which they are promoting the truth and minimize error. So ethical norms indicate us that these are wrong practices. And the people who are conducting such kind of activities are ethically wrong people. So ethical problems in social science research, these could be the various aspects of ethical problems in social science research. Any one of you could read it one by one, these different points. Yes, participants? Kindly read this slide. Yes.
I will request our participants to please unmute themselves, and they can read the points.
One by one.
I'll read out the first point, sir.
G.
The complexity of a single research problem can give rise to multiple questions of proper behavior.
Hmm.
The next is sensitivity to ethical issues is necessary, but not sufficient for solving them. The third point being is ethical problems are the results of conflicting values. The fourth point is ethical problems can relate to both the subject matter of the research and the conduct of the research. The next point, which is written over here, is an adequate understanding of an ethical problem sometimes requires a broad perspective based on the consequences of research. Next is ethical problems involve both personal and professional elements. The second last point is ethical problems can pertain to science and to research. The last point being is judgments about proper conduct lie on a continuum ranging from the clearly unethical to clearly ethical.
Yes, good. So on the basis of these research ethics norms, the definition of research ethics could be described as the concept of research ethics refers to a broad set of standards values, and institutional arrangements that contribute to consisting and regulating research activities. And it provides guidelines for the responsible conduct of research. Now the question arises, what could be the distinction between ethics and research ethics? Yes, any one of you can tell about, because I have already dictated what is meant by ethics, and the definition of research ethics I have already cleared to all of you. So any one of you, if you could define what could be the difference between the two, research ethics and ethics. Yes, participants, any one of you.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. This
Good
is
evening.
Rajiv from Department of Management Science, MGCUV. Sir, research ethics
Okay.
is basically related to set standards which are responsible for conducting research, which ethics that is related to morality. What is
Okay,
difference
good.
between good and bad?
Yes.
You have to conduct yourself in society. All these things are the part of the, but
Your
focused on
voice is
activities
breaking in
which,
between. I think there is some network problem. Yes, speak.
yes, sir. But research ethics is focused mainly on activities which guides the research, how it to be conducted. Yes, sir.
That's all. Very good. Very good answer. Spoken by
Thank
your
you, sir.
kind self. So as per your answer, you have dictated a very good answer that in nutshell, ethics are the moral principles that a person must follow. Irrespective of any place or time, but behaving ethically means doing the right thing at the right time. So this is all about ethics. But if we talk about research ethics, the research ethics focus on the moral principles that researcher must follow in their respective fields of research. This is research ethics. So the question arises, what could be the general principle of research ethics? What could be the general principles of research ethics? What is right and what is wrong? What is right and what is wrong? So if we talk about research ethics, so following could be the basis of research ethics. Number one, I think there should be honesty. Honesty means what? In which aspect research ethics should researcher should be honest? See, being honest with the beneficiaries and respondents, being honest about the findings and methodology of the research, and being honest with other direct and indirect stakeholders. Second one is, I think if we talk about research ethics, there should be an integrity, which is very, very important. Up now, how integrity could be maintained? See, if you are ensuring honesty and sincerity, if you are fulfilling agreements and promises, do not create false expectations or make false promises from the person from whom you are taking data or other direct or indirect stakeholders. So there should be an object. If you are taking any experimental design, if you are doing data analysis, if you are doing data interpretation, if you are into the peer review, if you are into the other aspect of researchers, so avoiding biasness. So this should be the integrity. This should be the integrity. Next, suppose if you are taking someone's data into your research, so there should be a informed consent. There should be a informed consent. What is the meaning of informed consent over here? So informed consent means that a person knowingly and voluntarily and intelligently gives consent to participate in a research. So the basic purpose of informed consent is related to the right of the individual to participate in the research. Or we can say informing the participant about the research objective and their role. So here one concept is very, very important. And that concept is epistemology. That will come in my next slides. So this is a very, very important quote of Sophocles. Rather fall with honor than succeed with fraud. And here, there are these topics I think we have already discussed. City University Hong Kong have summarized following ethical principles. Number 1 is honesty. Number 2 is objectivity. Number 3 is integrity. Number 4 is carefulness. Number 5 is openness, respect for intellectual property, confidentiality, responsible publication, responsible mentoring, respect for colleagues, non-discrimination, competence, legality, human subjects protection, and animal care. So I'm repeating once again. These are the following summary of ethical principles proclaimed by City University Hong Kong. A researcher should be honest, should have the concept of objectivity, should have the concept of integrity. He should be a very careful person. He should have concept of openness. He should have respect for intellectual property. He should be very confidential. He should have responsible publications. He should have responsible mentoring. He should have respect for colleagues. He should have non-discrimination policies. He should have competence aspect. Person should know what is the relevant laws and government policies. He should be into the process of minimizing harms and risks for the sake of maximizing profits. And the person should care proper respect for animals and other human beings. This is very, very important slide. Epistemology, ethics, and educational research. So if we talk about epistemology, it means what? Do you know what is the basic meaning? What is the dictionary meaning of epistemology? And why it is considered as an important aspect of ethical research? Why it is an important aspect in the bibliography of misconduct, research misconduct? Any one of you? Yes. On the basis of this slide, can you define what is the basic meaning of epistemology? Any one of you?
Sir, good evening to you.
Yes, good evening.
Sir, actually, epistemology, first would like to, good evening to you and to all being presented here. Epistemology actually part of philosophy. As we know that philosophy have 4 wings, epistemology, metaphysics, ethics and logics. Epistemology deals with the study of reality of science and genesis of its origin. मतलब इसका स्टडी क्या होता है, ओरिजिन किसी भी चीज की रियलिटी का स्टडी को हम अगर डील करते हैं तो वो चीज जो होता है एपिस्टेमोलॉजी का पार्ट होता है. In brief we say that if there is existence in the nature, then why this is existence, from which source this is existence, what should be it in itself, or what should be its outcome. It is juggling passes the many number of questions that is come under the ambit of epistemology. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Very good. Any other one? Epistemology?
Yes, sir. It's basically related to the philosophy behind the human knowledge. That if something is, as said by the previous speaker, if something is existing and it's known, so there should be some logic behind the existence of the knowledge. So it deals with the philosophy of the knowledge. It's like a field which study the philosophy of the knowledge.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very nice. You are taking an active participation in this session. I am very much happy. And being a researcher, it is one of the very important research ethics that if we into the any session of research, then we should be very good interactive with the respective faculty whom taking the session. So one concept is very, very important, and you all people quoted a very good definition of epistemology. So as per your definition, as per the crux of your definitions, epistemology is concerned with the possibilities, with the nature, and with the source and limitations of knowledge in the field of study. So if epistemology is to be described in simple words, so it focuses on what is known to be true. What is known to be true. So it analyzes the nature of knowledge, and it relates and it demonstrates how it can be related to the similar notions such as truth, such as belief, or such as justification. We are talking about epistemology, and we are correlating it with research, with ethical research. So it deals with the main means of production of knowledge, as well as skepticism about different knowledge claims. So research epistemology is the very important ingredient of research integrity, which is very, very important in the terminology of research ethics, because research ethics and integrity practices make sure that research is conducted according to the highest standards of practices. And highest standards of practices means with the minimal risk of adverse or harmful outcomes or consequences. So this is the basic purpose of epistemology. So this is the generalizable knowledge about it. Knowledge contributes to a theoretical framework of an established body of knowledge, and results are expected to be generalized to a larger population on the side of data collection and population study.
Sorry, sir. Sorry for interrupting you. I will request Sunil Kumar, sir, to please mute them, sir. Yes, sir. Please continue, sir. Sorry.
So no problem. So here we have 3 case studies, and I request everyone, you can take a screenshot of this slide. So these 3 case studies are very, very important if we talk about research integrity, if we talk about that how is integrity shown in research. So these 3 case studies are very, very important. Number 1 case study is related to lifeboat case. Is murder allowed by necessity? And this was the decision done by Queen versus Dudley and Stephens legal aspect. The second case study is related to Nuremberg Code, which was conducted in 1947. And third case study is Tuskegee syphilis study. So I'll discuss these case studies one by one. We can see this slide. This is a lifeboat case. Is murder allowed by necessity? Queen versus Dudley and Stephens. This was a very, very prominent case by which we can understand what is the basic purpose of honesty, what is the basic purpose of ethical research. See, ethics can be different from one person to person. I am ethical in some other perspective, and someone can be ethical in another perspective. So here we would summarize this case study by this slide. I am reading a little bit fast this slide. See, there were 4 people in this lifeboat. Mr. Dudley and Edwin Stephens, and 2 other gentlemen, Mr. Brooks and the victim Richard Parker. See, Richard Parker was the 17 years old, and he was orphanage, had no family. He was the youngest one. Among 4, Richard Parker was the youngest one. So what he did, he drank sea water and appeared to be died. See, they all were in a yacht, and the yacht sailed to Australia. So they were about to die. So what he did, Parker who was 17 years old, who was the youngest one among four, he drank sea water and appeared to be dying. Were stranded on a boat for several days. When it appeared that the whole party would likely die of thirst and starvation, the defenders decided to sacrifice Mr. Parker for the good of the rest. So, what these three people decided, that if we have to secure our life, then what we have to do, we have to sacrifice Mr. Parker for the good of the rest. So, what they did? It happened when a small yacht being sailed to Australia by an experienced English seafarer, Tom Dudley, and his mates, Edwin Stephens, Edmund Brooks, and the 17 years old cabin boy, Richard Thomas Parker. But the boat called the Mignotti sunk with little warning on the high seas on July 5, 1884. Suddenly, the four men were crowded in a small dinghy, lost in the middle of the South Atlantic, at latitude 27 degree 10 south and longitude 9 degrees 50 west, 1600 miles from Cape of Good Hope, 2000 from South America, with 2 tins of turnips and no water. So it was a desperate situation in front of them. On July 13, the men began to drink their own urine. On July 20th, Parker gave way to temptation. Matlab, he was in the position that he was appeared to be die and began to gulp down seawater because seawater was poisonous. So it had the inevitable effect. He began to speak deliriously and gave some appearance of imminent death. When July 24 dawned, with Parker breathing heavily, apparently comatose and sunken to the bottom of the open boat, what Dudley decided? Dudley had the wherewithal to kill slowly by bleeding him before natural death, because the reason was what? Because occurred so as to salvage the blood. Now Dudley's evidence. No vessel appearing on the morning. I made signs to Stephen and Brooks that we had better to hit, but they seemed to have no hull to do it. So I went to the boy who was lying at the bottom of the boat with his arm over his face. I took out my knife, first offering a prayer to God to forgive us for what we were about to do and for the rash act, that our souls might be saved. And I said to the boy, Richard, your time has come. The boy said, what, me, sir? I said, yes, my boy. Means what the people decided, they decided to kill the Richard Parker in order to save their lives. So this was the ethic in front of them at that time. So ethics can be different as person to person. So as per this case study, what I'm trying to say, key ethics could be different. It varies from person to person. So what the people decided to kill the person at that time. I then put my knife into the side of his neck. Just a minute, my phone call is coming. Just a minute. Hello. हाँ, गुड इवनिंग. हाँ, ओम प्रकाश जी नमस्कार, बताइए. मैं एकदम बढ़िया हूँ. हाँ, नहीं नहीं, उदयपुर ही था. आप कहाँ पर हो?
Sir, you can unmute yourself and begin whenever you are ready, sir. Sir, you can unmute yourself.
Sir, if you can hear me.
Naveen ji has raised his hand. Naveen ji, is there any question from your end?
नो सर, वो गलती से टच हो गया था।
Okay, no issue. I think Siddharthji, sir is still on phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible now, sir.
Audible, sir.
Actually, I cut the phone at the same time. Just a minute. My PPT is visible to all of you?
Yes, sir, it
Your
is.
PPT is visible, sir.
Just a minute. So this is the PPT Doodle's evidence. It is being shown to you?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
We are having that slide in front of us.
Okay. So Doodle's evidence, no vessel appearing on the morning. I made signs to Stephens and Brooks that we had better do it, but they seemed to have nowhere to do it. So I went to the boy who was lying at the bottom of the boat with his arm over his face. I took out my knife, first offering a prayer to God to forgive us for what we were about to do and for the rash act, that our souls might be saved. And I said to the boy, Richard, your time has come. The boy said, what me, sir? I said, yes, my boy. I then put my knife into the side of his neck. The blood spurted out and we caught it in the bailer, and we drank the blood while it was warm. We then striped the body, cut it open, and took out his liver and heart, and we ate the liver while it was still warm. Stephens at the time was in the stern of the boat and Brooks in the bow. It was a terrible scene when later described by the survivors. Mad wolves, they described themselves. They were rescued on 29th, and by the beginning of September, they had been landed at Falmouth, England, where, when questioned, they made no secret of what they had done. To some locals, they were heroes. See, what is the ethical dilemma over here? To some locals, they were heroes. So these were the ethical practices they three followed. And for some people, they were depicted like heroes. So I mean to say, same likewise in the research. Your ethics could be different from others' research ethics. Facts. The defendant, Mr. Brooks, and the victim, Mr. Parker, were English seamen. The group was cast away in a storm on the high seas and was compelled to put into an open boat. They had no supply of food or water. After the group had been without food for 7 days and without water for 5 days, the defendant spoke to Mr. Brooks about sacrificing the victim, Mr. Parker, to save the rest. Mr. Brooks dissented and the victim was not consulted. Mr. Dudley suggested that if no vessel was in sight, the next morning they would kill the victim. No vessel appeared the next day, so Mr. Dudley, with the assent of Mr. Stephens, killed the victim. The three remaining castaways fed upon the victim, Mr. Parker, for 4 days, at which time a passing vessel rescued them. Dudley and Stephens were shipwrecked along with 2 other men. When one of them, the cabin boy Richard Parker, fell into coma, Dudley and Stephens decided to kill him for food. So what is the basic meaning of this slide? What is the basic meaning of this lifeboat case study? The basic meaning, the basic crux of this case study is that ethics could be different from person to person. My research ethics could be different from the research ethics of some other person who is in front of me. So this is the second slide, second case study, the Nuremberg Code 1947. See, this is the case study in front of you all, but what was the basic meaning of this case study? What was the basic meaning of this case study? The basic meaning of this case study is that if you are into the process of taking data of others into your research, then don't indulge yourself into scientific misconduct. Don't indulge yourself into scientific misconduct, because research ethics, what it implies. See, we are very much aware that we are doing research with responsibility, and particularly towards various stakeholders who will definitely be beneficial for the research that is being carried out by a researcher. So research integrity means doing research in such a way that inculcate confidence in yourself. तो Nuremberg Code क्या बताता है? What is the basic purpose of Nuremberg Code? It tells us that if you are taking someone's data, then prior information should be taken. Because if you are taking someone's data and informed consent is not being taken, it means you are indulging yourself into scientific misconduct. And scientific misconduct, scientific misconduct means ultimately damage the integrity of a research process. Am I audible? Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you enjoying the PPTs, guys?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Very much, sir.
Definitely, sir.
Very good. Very nice. So, if you are into violating the science, if you are into the violating the records, and if you are into violating the publication, it means these are the very biggest examples of scientific misconduct. So Nuremberg Code tells about it. And these are the 10 principles of Nuremberg Code. Any one of you, if you could read about it, any one of you. Yes, participants?
Sir, actually the font size is
Yeah.
a bit small to be read, sir. If
Just
we
a
can just
minute.
zoom in the slides, sir, that will be convenient.
Just a minute.
It's not clear, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, it was extracted from some British encyclopedia. So now it is visible, or
It is
Not
visible,
visible?
sir, but not so clear, sir.
it is blurred, है ना?
Yeah, it is
Yes, sir.
actually blurred.
Okay, no problem. So this was all about Nuremberg Code. Third case study was related to Tuskegee syphilis study. What is the basic purpose of analyzing this research case study? See, being a researcher, we don't have any right to experiment on animal or on human being. Prior permission from the medical department is to be taken if we are taking care of all these aspects. And if we are not taking, it means we are doing violation of research ethics. See, as per this case study, what was done? Some scientific experiments were done on the patients. The ailment was available, the medicine was available, but it was not depicted in front of the patients, and natural experiments were being conducted. Patients were deceived, patients were coerced, and patients were treated unjustly. I'm reading this case study. The purpose of this study was to observe the natural study of untreated syphilis. Although the African American men who participated in this study were told that they were receiving free health care from the federal government of the United States, but they were not. The Public Health Service started the study in 1932 in collaboration with Tuskegee University, a historically black college in Alabama. In this study, investigators enrolled a total of 600 improvised African American sharecroppers from Macon County, Alabama. And of these men, 399 had latent syphilis, with a control group of 201 men who were not infected. As an incentive for participation in the study, the men were promised for free medical care but were deceived by the PHS. This is the main purpose of this study. Medicines were available, each and every treatment was available, but they were not aware about the situation ki yes, medical facilities are there and they were being practically demonstrated on the people itself. So I mean to say, by the help of this case study, this is a very, very biggest example of scientific misconduct. It means you are making up the data. You are into the only creation of results. You are fabricating the data. You are changing the data. You are misrepresenting the data. And you are using some wrong practices, which is a biggest example of scientific misconduct. So this is scientific misconduct. If we talk about the bookish definition of scientific misconduct, we all know, because with the help of previous slides, I have already made it clear to all of you that the violation of the standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior in professional scientific research. When a researcher fabricates or falsifies data, or even I can say that plagiarizes information or ideas within a research project, this creates scientific misconduct. This creates scientific misconduct. So, common types of scientific misconduct: falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. Any one of you can read this slide? Then I'll tell what is the basic distinctions. Any one of you?
Sir, shall I?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Common types of scientific misconduct. The first one is falsification. Falsification is the changing or omission of research results or data to support claims, hypotheses, other data, etc. Falsification can include the manipulation of research instrumentation, materials, or processes, manipulation of images or representations in a manner that distorts the data or reads too much between the lines can also be considered falsification. Fabrication. Fabrication is the construction and or addition of data, observation, or characterization that never occurred in the gathering of data or running of experiments. Fabrication can occur when filling out the rest of experiment runs, claims about results need to be made on complete data sets as normally assumed, where claims made based on incomplete or assumed results in a form of fabrication. Last one is plagiarism. Plagiarism is a use of someone else's work without attribution, passing it off as one's own. Text, figures, tables, or even ideas can be plagiarized when a whole entity, for example, an entire article, a figure, a table, or a data set, is republished without attribution or permission. There may be a copyright violation as well as ethical misconduct. This
Very
is
good.
as per US Office of Research Integrity.
Very good.
Yes.
So these are the definitions prescribed by US Office of Research Integrity. So scientific misconduct could be seen as per these three aspects: falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. And we all are very much aware that these three aspects are very much prohibited. So falsification, you know, when you omit or change the research result, this is known as falsification. Means when you are inculcating a wrong data, when you are inculcating or manipulating wrong images or representing in a manner that yes, it is correct. So this is a highly misconduct example. So making up data or making up result is known as fabrication. When you are into the process of changing or misrepresenting data or misrepresenting result, so these are the very, very good examples of research misconduct. So scientific misconduct means what? We all know that it is a violation of the standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior. Is this valid in scientific research? Plagiarism is valid in scientific research? No. See, if we talk about this definition, when you are quoting someone else's work without attribution, passing it off as one's own text, it means what you are doing as a researcher. It means you are presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own with or without their consent. You are incorporating it into your work. And you have not acknowledged his work with proper citation of the concerned person without fully acknowledging to the concerned one. So here, as per the definition of scientific misconduct, it can be defined that plagiarism is intentional. And if you quote proper name, proper site, proper URL, in this condition, you can liberalize into this. But plagiarism is always a type of cheating, is always a type of unethical behavior that involves the use of another person's ideas, words, even designs, any logo, any musical part, any art, or etc. So these kind of unauthorized use of part or article should be highly prohibited. How you can quote someone else's research without giving proper credit to the original writer? This is unethical copying of any writing. And this is the scientific misconduct. These are some unethical practices in scientific research. I think we have read it. We have cleared all the aspects one by one. So just see the points. Then I'll skip this slide. I'm just giving 20 to 30 seconds for this slide. You can read it out. Then I'll move further. Have you read it? Yes? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You people are not very much interactive.
I will
I'm
request
going to the
our esteemed participants, please unmute yourself and you can have any kind of interaction with our honorable resource person. It will be really appreciating if you can come forward and interact. Please.
we were talking about scientific misconduct, and these are some causes of scientific misconduct. Means conflict of interest. If you have some personal, professional, or financial interest of conflict, then it could be a part of scientific misconduct. Policies regarding human subjects, like vertebrate animal subject in research and safe laboratory practices. So these are the example of scientific misconduct. Mentor-mentee responsibilities and relationship. If the people are not responding to you, if suppose you are a research guide and your research scholar is not responding to you properly, then it also a part of scientific misconduct. We must know each and every aspect of relationship of mentor and mentee. So collaborative research, including collaborations with industry, peer review, data acquisition and laboratory tools management, sharing and ownership, research misconduct and policies for handling misconduct, responsible authorship and publication, the scientist at a responsible number of society, contemporary ethical issues in biomedical research, and the environmental and societal impact of scientific research. So these could be the causes of scientific research. Apart from these, desire to see voluminous curriculum vitae. See, sometimes what happens, we have to into the process of writing research papers into the vague and void journals. Even we don't see that this journal has any impact factor, this journal has any CITES score, and this journal has any market reputation. We just focus on quantity, not quality. So this is also a biggest example of research misconduct, because we have to get promotions, we have to get academic advancement, we desire of grant sanctioning, major projects, and we are into the process of making curriculum heavy. But this is a example of research misconduct. This we have, I think, made it clear. So here you will have to know that there is a distinction between similarity and plagiarism. But in academic writing, you must know plagiarism means someone else's work. And if you are not proper giving them credit, so it means a lot. So as such, there are several methods by which plagiarism can be removed. For example, what you can do so that similarity index will not be there. What you can do, you can keep track of all the sources you are consulting into your research, or what you can do, you can paraphrase, you can quote all the sources, you can credit the original author in text citation or in reference list, or you can check your paper with the any anti-plagiarism software. So the basic distinction between plagiarism and similarity means what? See, when you use other ideas without referring to them, or you intend them that these ideas are your own, this is plagiarism. 1% plagiarism is never allowed. 1% plagiarism. But here question arises, does similarity index means plagiarism? See, being a researcher, being a faculty of management, my first duty, if I suppose I send my paper to any journal, what I do, first I check my paper with the Turnitin software. So Turnitin is a software that identify the match material by checking it electronically, है ना? तो इंटरनेट से वो पेपर चेक हो जाता है. तो Turnitin provides a similarity index, which does not mean plagiarism. Which does not mean plagiarism. Similarity index means something different. This is a case of self-plagiarism. See, self-plagiarism means what? When an author misrepresents or misuses their material, their own material, reusing old text or result as part of new work without proper citation. See, another if we talk about self-plagiarism, so another form of self-plagiarism is data fragmentation, where what authors can publish their results or findings in several smaller places for better presenting as a larger and cohesive as a whole. But this practice is unethical, because if you are putting the same matter on different website, it wastes the time of reviewers and readers who could otherwise focus on other academic literature. So try to avoid self-plagiarism. I was expecting a question from you people. There is a very, very important question: how to avoid self-plagiarism?
Naveen, you can unmute yourself if you have any question.
Yes, sir. Good evening,
Yeah.
sir.
Good
Sir,
evening.
suppose I have to quote the government data because in my research or in my thesis. So it comes in the plagiarism or the similarity index. It fall
No,
in
dear,
which
it
part,
cannot
and
if you
how
are
to
quoting.
remove that?
Yes. Mhm. Okay. Suppose if you are quoting any government data, what you can do, if you are depicting with the help of a table, so beneath the table, what you can do, you can quote the URL and the retrieval period on which date you retrieved the data. Is it clear? You can
Okay, sir.
quote all the URL list over there on the front page where you are depicting the same table of the government data itself. So you can quote the same government data with the URL, with the retrieval date, and with the prescribed source. So in this condition, it will not be considered as plagiarism.
So in that case, sir, Tintin will not take as a plagiarism. That data, if I do
No, but it will
as you
not be
said.
considered as a part of plagiarism. It will not be considered as a part of, the reviewers will not consider it as a part of plagiarism if you will quote a source, URL, and retrieval date.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes. So this is the way by which we can avoid self-plagiarism. Very good question you quoted. See, sometimes there is a blunder. There is a blunder. How to avoid self-plagiarism? So first of all, you will have to cite your previously published material in new work and make sure that your previously published data or text in a new work, in a new manner. Is it clear? Publish your finding as a cohesive whole. So whenever possible, to avoid data fragmentation, unless there are good reasons for doing this, and always disclose to the journal editors when the work you are submitting contains previously published material. So this is very, very important. This is to be kept in mind. Data fabrication, data falsification, we have already made it clear. So fabrication means making up data or results, or we can say that if we are into the manipulating research material, manipulating any equipment, manipulating any process, or we are changing or omitting data, and so it is not accurately representing in the research record. So this is data fabrication. But as a researcher, we have to know that yes, this includes manipulating images, which is very, very much prohibiting. So fabrication means what? So fabrication is like filling out someone other's matter. And this is prohibited. And what is the meaning of falsification? Falsification means changing or omission of the research result. If we have to claim our hypothesis that yes, I have to prove this hypothesis, I have to support this claim, I have to support this data, so falsification implies this kind of periphery. If you are into the manipulation of research instrumentation, material, or any process, it means you are into the data falsification. Whether it is, if we talk about data fabrication or we talk about data falsification, both involves unauthorized creation, alteration, or reporting of information in an academic activity. This is a criminal offense because you are altering the data, you are changing the data, and any unlawful purposes you are doing. These kind of activities should be very much prohibited. Suppose you have taken some actual experiment, but artificially you are creating the data. This is the biggest example of fabrication or falsification. You are unauthorized altering or falsification of any data, any document, any image. It comes under the periphery of falsification. So this should not be done, because by doing so you are omitting the research result, and you are distorting the data. This is the important and single precise word. This should not be done. This is the slide that shows what is the guidance provided by faculties and departments in order to reduce plagiarism. So this is available on websites. You can check it out. There are different departments, and plagiarism policy is different from subject to subject. You can check it out on website. It is there on University of Cambridge University Office's website. It can be shown over there. These are some simple tips to reduce the level of similarity index. Use your own language. Use simple language as far as possible. Keep the sentences short. Use synonyms for commonly used repeated words. Present the output summary of data analysis in your own language and self-prepared table. Report the results in your own table. You can show the original output tables in appendixes. These are some basic qualities of ethical researcher: hardworking, politeness, acknowledgement, continuity, respect your guide, be cautious, and time management. These are some important points. Adding something new in existing one. At the time of submission, focus on repository, non-repository. Just see. We check the data on anti-plagiarism software known as Turnitin. So there are two aspects over there. One is repository and second one is non-repository. So if you will submit your data into repository, then at the time of checking next time of the same data, it will show 100%. So at the time of checking any data on Turnitin software, kindly denote as non-depository. Third point is no free lunch is there. It means there are so many online websites on which you can check your data, but these are useless. No free lunch is available. Try to check your own data on an authentic one website always. I think there is an anti-plagiarism software installed in your university. As such, Urkund is UGC approved, but Turnitin software, you can take personal access of it also. So try to remove plagiarism by an authentic anti-plagiarism software, not each anti-plagiarism software which is freely available on any website. For documentary proof, try to send research work by the mail. You should have any documentary proof. Don't send your data to anyone without prior consent of your guide. This is also an important aspect of research ethics. See, sometimes what we do, we generally prepare research methodology, then we start analysis. But as a good researcher, first analysis, then RM should be done. Because after analysis, you will be able to know that what strategy you have followed. This should be done by a researcher. Output table should not be pasted in research work. It should be pasted in as an appendices form at the back of the thesis. Impact of article, impact of author citation analysis should be done at the time of sending paper anywhere. Sabotage, don't try to indulge yourself into the politics of your department. If someone is using yourself into some other unethical means, try to not indulge in such kind of unethical practices. Research Integrity Committee is there in any university. Actually, it is prescribed by UGC. Suppose I am a person of finance, and if I want to send my paper in any important finance related journal, so with the help of Research Integrity Committee, what I can do, I can send my paper by proper discussion with them that where should I send my paper, because I have written this paper with full zeal, with full integrity, and I know the best journal because they see what generally happens. There are some journals that don't have any open access. So in this condition, your paper citation could be very less. So try to send papers in open access journal also, so that you could receive very good citations of your research work. And if your citations would be there, definitely you will have very good H index. So keep it in mind if you are into this research process. What kind of data you gonna to collect? It is very much clear to you if you are doing a research work that if you are into the primary data phase or secondary data phase, it should be very much clear. Honest error, if you have committed any mistake, then please try to consult with your research guide, and there should be a proper harmony and proper good relations between guide and a scholar. There should not be any democratic inequality. Respect of other person's perception too. If you have something in your mind, try to represent them. Proper communication should be there. And you, as previously described, you must know each and every aspect of your research. This is all about Turnitin software, by which we can check our plagiarism. Here you can submit your title. The file you are submitting will not be added to any repository, so kindly keep an eye on it and try to keep a finger on non-repository, so that if you have any plagiarism in the same paper, so next time if you are checking it on the same website, you will not be able to find 100% plagiarism. These are the various filters by which you can show that how much plagiarism is there in your paper. And plagiarism is generally depicted by different colors, multicolors, from where you collected your data. For example, by this slide, I can check that 12% data is from publication, 4% data is from publication, 3% data is from internet source, 2% data is from internet source, and 2% data is from students' paper. And these are various possible reasons for plagiarism. ये भी नहीं होना चाहिए. You can read it. These all are the various aspects of research misconduct, which is highly prohibited in research area. These are the forms of plagiarism. See, here I have not quoted one important aspect of plagiarism, that is mosaic plagiarism. Mosaic. Anyone know about it? Mosaic plagiarism, what is meant by?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, taking few lines and few paragraphs from different articles and putting it together so that it can't be recognized that source is not the same, but copied materials are there from different sources.
Very good, very nice. Means, but what is meant by mosaic plagiarism? Suppose a student borrows phrases from a source without using quotation marks. है ना? For example, same quote of author's language you are keeping to the same general language structure. Sometimes called कहते हैं ना path writing. This is kind of a plagiarism. And it could be intentional or not, but yes, for sure, it is also academically dishonesty. And it is also punishable. Whether you are footnoting, you are doing it in footnote at the back of your source, but copying from a single source is always punishable. So don't do it also. These are some guidelines of IEEE standards. You can read it out. I am just giving 30 seconds for this slide. These are some sources by which you can check how much plagiarism is there in your paper, and you can check it out on these anti-plagiarism software. So this was all about my lecture. I think you people enjoyed the session.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. And now I'd like to invite our participants if they can unmute themselves and ask their questions. And alternatively, they can put their questions in the chat box and we'll be taking their questions forward. So any of the participants can unmute themselves and put their questions forward.
So we have one question in the chat box from Anant Sharma.
Just a minute, I am just opening the chat box.
Sir, shall I read it? Or
Yes, what we can submitting or publishing the same paper to in different publisher journals without telling the editor. No, it is not a type of misconduct. But if you have received the consent from one publisher, then immediately you have to remove your paper from the second one. You have to tell them that your paper has been accepted and now it should not be further entertainment by your kind self. So once you have received consent for your paper, that your paper will be published by some other publishing house, then immediately you will have to remove your paper from the second one source. At a single period of time, you can send your paper anywhere, up to 3 or 4 journals. No problem. It is not considered as misconduct or any type of manipulation.
Thank you, sir.
I think.
And this brings us, yeah.
Sir, I
Actually,
have
sir,
one
this,
question.
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
yeah, Naveen, please.
Sir, suppose, sir, I'm working on the MSME sector. So whenever I write the research paper on, so I write the MSME in sometime in short form, sometime in full form. So the plagiarism will take this particular or MSME ministry or some kind of government ministry name. So plagiarism will take this name every time, or it leave it.
In this condition, you can, this will not be considered as plagiarism. See, there are so many things for which plagiarism is not being considered. For example, if you're quoting MSME or if you will quote micro, small and medium enterprises, then in this condition, you cannot change the main nomenclature. So these things these things do not come under the periphery of plagiarism.
Okay, sir. But in term of similarity, sir, similarity index, so they
it can be there in the term similarity index, but it hardly matters. Okay. And the reviewer who are reviewing your paper will not consider as the main concept of plagiarism. So least worried
Okay,
about it. Yes.
okay, sir. Thank you,
So,
sir.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question in the chat box from Anupam Mandloi, and he is asking how can one reduce or avoid plagiarism in
For
review
paper for
paper for
conference, it is
conference?
very good question, Anupam Mandaloi. So if you are into the process of preparing paper on review based method, so what you can do, try to adopt one important aspect, that is paraphrasing. See what people do, what researchers do. They, on the basis of literature review, they generally take the same matters from others author as in the same context they have done in their research. But don't do that. If you are taking their papers, matters in your research papers, or the paper you are preparing for the conference purposes, so try to take matter but in your own languages. So it will not be considered as plagiarism in that condition. You can paraphrase the matter. You can, if the matter is in the direct form, you can convert it in indirect form. If active is there, you can make it into the passive form. So it is up to you how you make creative of the how you make creative the same literature with your own perspective. So by this you can reduce the plagiarism. I think, Anupam, I am very much clear to you.
Thank you, sir. And this now brings
Sir,
us
I have a doubt. Yes, if time permits, Siddharth.
Yes,
Rajiv ji.
Rajiv. Yes.
Okay, Rajiv ji.
Hello. Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, in the very first case study, we saw that ethics differs as per the time and situation and the person. So, do we get some kind of flexibility in research
Rajiv, your
ethics
voice is
also,
not
or
very
that
much
is
clear. Can you
valid
write
only?
the question in the chat box?
Sir, I am asking that in very first case study, we saw that ethics differs according to situation and the time and different things. Ethics depend on those things. So, do we get same kind of flexibility in when it comes to research ethics, or are there set standards which have to be
No, there
followed
are
in any
not set
case?
standards here. Research perception is quite different, and it varies from person to person. Suppose the same thesis is being sent to different authors, to different guides for checking purpose, for elaboration purpose. So the report, the perception of different professors will be quite different. So research perspective is always different from each one's. So I can drive other conclusion
Thank
from
you,
the
sir.
same research that we have done, and some other Siddharth can drive other perception from his own perception. So, and the same was depicted by that case study, that ethics could be different from person to person. It is varied.
Thank you, sir.
But sir, we can say that the basic
Yes, sir.
ethics code should not change in that case. If there is a two
See,
similarities.
I told about perspective. I am not saying that you have to do any manipulation. See, ethics means what? You have not to commit any misconduct. This is the precise form of ethics.
Okay, sir.
So perspective could be different, but in what sense you are taking ethics? See, as per that case studies, the three defendants who saved their lives, so as per themselves, the people were quite good. And when they were about to reach to England, their hometown, and these were considered like a hero, because in that calamity situation, when natural disaster was there and they were appear to be die, with the proper wisdom of themselves, at least they saved their lives. Because when they came to know that Richard Parker is almost about to die, so he will have natural death. So what advantages we can take with the help of Richard Parker? So this wisdom they applied at that time, and in some context, I'm not very much कहते हैं ना कि solid on this aspect कि how much they wrong, but yes, as per the case study, the people did a good job at that time. Otherwise, they also lost their lives, would have lost their lives.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And this brings us to the close of this session, this wonderful session which we had. I'll take this opportunity to thank our resource person for this session, Dr. Sachin Gupta, sir, for his highly informative session on scientific misconducts falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. Sir, almost 3/4 of the registered participants are young research scholars in our session, and it's my firm belief that they will definitely benefit from today's session. And I'll also like to thank our Honorable Dean, Professor Pavnesh Kumar, who is the course coordinator, along with Dr. Sapna Sugandha and Dr. Alka Lalhal, who are the course co-coordinators of this program. And I'll also like to thank all our faculty members from the Department of Management Sciences who guide us every time during organization of an event like this. I thank the participants as well for their involvement. And with these words, on behalf of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, School of Commerce and Management Sciences, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all the academicians and scholars who have joined us today. We will be uploading these lectures on our YouTube by tomorrow, and we'll be sharing the links as well on our WhatsApp group, which we have created. I'll now remind our participant that we will be now joining on Monday for the morning session at 9:30 p.m. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Sachin Gupta, sir,
Thank you
for
so
taking
much.
out time.
Thank you, sir.
Can I leave, Siddharth?
Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
With your
you,
due
sir.
permission now, sir, we can bring this session to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.